Okay, so this is the video that is going to be my version of like the problems in the black community video response. Um I wrote a little bit about this in the comments on the last video about the Combs twins, but I just watched Amala's entire video and I was going to wait. Like, I literally, I was walking on the treadmill over and I stopped because I was like, yeah, I need to talk about this. And here's why. Hold on. I'm going to try to fix. So, I guess, I don't know if some of you guys saw this today, but it looks like the Young Turks talked about this and it was coverage from like 4 days ago. But it looks like 215 bodies were found in Mississippi. Probably most of these were black people who were imprisoned. And one of the points Amala tried to make was like, oh yeah, so in these like she kept talking about urban communities, right? Urban communities. And I just want to go back for a second to myself, and I'll put this playlist in the description box. But I did it like a fellowship that studied poverty. So specifically, I worked on food access, recidivism, or when people go to prison and they come back into society, and I was focused on literacy. Right, those were like my specific research areas that I spent most of my hours studying. I interviewed a lot of people. It was based in New York, but yeah, we talked to a lot of people, talked to a lot of organizations doing work in the field. I would say it was pretty cutting edge research in terms of the field of poverty or whatever. Learned a lot. Definitely changed who I am as a person. But the thing about poverty, and I think I'll link another video in the description box because I think Fab Socialism did this awesome job of like basically summarizing everything I learned, where she talked about the nonprofit industrial complex. Here's the big idea. A lot of people who there's a lot of Americans, especially white Americans, have a standard of living that is very comfortable. Like, I would say like not maybe like 25 to 30% of it might be larger because if we're just talking about like all white Americans. Okay, so if we're talking about all white Americans in the country, I would say of that group specifically, so like we're not counting any other races. There are other races of people here, but just amongst white Americans in America, I would say like 45% of them probably live within this sector that I'm considering like middle class white people and above. And so I would say those families are probably making like it's probably like a mom and a dad, or even it could just be one parent. But if it's one parent, maybe that parent's making like $150,000 a year. If it's two parents, probably like 250 to $300,000 a year. And this is like a middle class sort of situation. There's a lot of people in this country, especially white people, who are living like this. And so when you have that kind of money, and I'm not saying that's not, you're not P Diddy, okay, if you are making that much money. Um, you're like middle class, but you have money to send your kids to college, where your kids going to college matters. Okay, you probably have, if you don't have private school, you have public school and kind of exclusive after school programs like JAP, which is like what is it, the Jewish after school program. That's in like every upper middle class neighborhood. Some of you might not even heard of that. Like where I'm from, all the kids go to JAP. It's like a major part of society. um you have definitely like the ballet classes, the hip hop classes. Now those are popular. Cheerleading, track and field, volleyball, basketball, all kinds of social events that you could like spend this extra money on to afford your children this kind of cush class of living that is definitely above poverty. And it's a system, okay? So it's kind of like you're actually training for this lifestyle your whole life. Like when you're in kindergarten, you still have responsibilities like some sort of chores and things, learning how to read, reading books at night, maybe doing your Kumon, participating in your after school activities, having social events with your classmates, okay, building social bonds in all these ways. Then as you get older, you go to high school, you have like a relationship with like maybe like your boyfriend or something. Then you go to college, you develop longer term friendships there. Okay, and like most people in college are not going, especially if you come from that sort of like kind of cushy nest, most people aren't going to become doctors or lawyers. A lot of people get liberal arts degrees. This is why the focus on somewhere like Harvard, which provides a liberal arts education, I would highly encourage you to go listen to Kimberly's video where she completely unpacks like how and why she chose a liberal arts education as opposed to something else, especially as a black person, and talking about Claudine Gay and that experience. I can't really speak to that. I can talk to myself, and I can share that one conversation that I had with my peers at the time who were from like was it like Idaho State and Princeton, right? And I went to like UC Davis, so like the University of California. Like we all have different experiences, right? So my point though is that like if you get a liberal arts education where you've gone all the way through higher education and you kind of understand society, you kind of understand the world, you're like a citizen now. And also you've had all of this training to kind of push you up to this point where like you know how to be a citizen in society, you know how to like talk to the other people. What you realize when you study poverty like I did, or is that maybe you want to like not do something that's really taxing, right? Like you actually don't want to do the rigor of going to medical school or have the stress, okay, that comes with being a surgeon because you've seen your aunt who's a surgeon, or you literally know other kids who went to your school and they're a surgeon. They're stressed the fuck out, they hate their job, they're making a lot of money, but the lifestyle is kind of like not that great. It's for some people the lifestyle is great. For some people they eat and sleep their job and it's fucking great and they were born to do it and they weren't born to do anything else, and that's perfect. If you're that person, bro, like hats off to you. But if you're not, and you're just kind of a person who like has this like liberal arts degree now from a pretty good school and you're trying to go out into the world, this is where the people in the non-profit industrial complex come in. They always have like some social mission. Oh, we want to help kids in Africa eat. We want to. It's Mr. Beast providing the wells in Africa with the philanthropy channel, where it's a loop, right? Because he is actually helping people who needed the help, and he's actually providing like advertising dollars to go back into his business, and he's becoming a better video editor. All of it is kind of a loop that's pushing society forward. At the same time, it's a part of the nonprofit industrial complex. Kind of. In this particular case, Mr. Beast has like extended the life of that particular society because he said like those solar panels that he put in those wells is gonna last for a long time. So he's provided water for like 100 years, or maybe it's forever. I don't know. Maybe he'll keep like that philanthropy and sign a thing where he's like, well, we'll make sure that this goes on forever. I don't know. Maybe he will. I don't know. But he gave where a community had nothing. He gave a few people access to water, which is fucking phenomenal because nobody else did that. The nonprofit industrial complex, especially in America, is kind of doing that. Except the lifetime is not really like 100 years, and it's not water that people are being provided. It's more like one admission spot to Yale or something. Like they will have some little program that'll be like, oh, we have this after school program to teach people what it's like to be in the Ivy League. And it'll be like one kid who's like a legacy kid will come and teach a person how to read. And like in like the hood or whatever, and then I'll be like, I did my part. There's actually a book about this. Oh man, I have that book, but I can't remember. It's like okay, there's like a book about a teacher. I think it was like in Chicago, or like a principal. It wasn't When Teachers Talk. the hell is this book called? Um, Rethinking Schools. It's like this guy who was a principal in Chicago. Oh man, I don't know if I can. I can't remember the name of the book. I'll look it up and find it. But there's this guy. His name is like Jeff something. Maybe hold on. Let's see if we can find this. So it's book by Jeff. Principal. Like a Chicago school. Kids can't read something. It might be in my Audible. Let me see, because I had all these books and then whatever. The point is, this guy goes, he was like a police officer or something, and then he becomes like the principal of some school in Chicago where there's a bunch of like poor black kids and they can't read. And he slowly starts to realize like how far the students are behind and that they're like never ever gonna catch up, even with like intervention, because they're like so far behind. It's like 8th graders who are reading at like a preschool level and they have no mentorship behind them. There's just not enough hours for them to catch up. And then like there's all the shit that they have to learn on grade level. Like a really important part is like staying on track. Staying on track is really important because like a part of staying on track is gaining the lessons from last year, but there's lessons that you have to learn this year. Like you have to master certain lessons before you can go to like the next step. A really big idea of like America and the America black people problem is that like 10 generations from now, black people will evolve and then they will finally be where like white people are today. That's the big idea why people keep wanting to be like, no, like, because if you look at the state of things right now, if there's no plan to improve, then nobody should be having any black babies in America, which is kind of like how I feel. Like I feel like you should just give up. Like you're like most black families are just too far behind, and there's just nothing that you could do to catch up. For most black families, there are definitely going to be a small percentage who like do well, who stay on track, who like kind of go the route or whatever, but there's not enough spots. And that's the thing that I think some people don't understand. We can say like the thing is like going to college or whatever, getting a job, but then we have like artificial intelligence and robotics that are like changing everything. And then we have like YouTube and social media and journalism changing everything. These things are all moving like at the same time, and there's like the cost of living. So we have people with graduate degrees. We have people who are very smart and they like don't have jobs, or they're working as like baristas or something. All of that shit is real. You can't. And then people keep talking about the replacement rate. What I'm saying, to go back to Amala's video, is that like there are structural issues impacting the black community, and I think both of those people, it was whatever, Amir and Amala, are wrong because they seem to believe that reparations won't fix that, because they say that they're making that argument of like black people don't know how to manage finances. Yes, a lot of black people don't know how to manage finances, but that actually isn't the point. Like reparatory actions or reparations is not based upon like how a person would spend the money. That doesn't matter. Reparatory action is just about like repairing what you broke. So if you didn't break black people not knowing about finances, then it's not for you to fix. But if you stole 400 years of labor, then you need to pay for the labor. So the part that you need to fix is paying for the labor. So you don't need to worry about like what the black people do with the money after they get the money. Like that's really none of your concern. It's none. Clearly, maybe Amir and Amala do not see themselves as recipients of reparations, so they can just shut the fuck up about the issue, right? It's not for them. Like you could just move on, and like both of them seem to say like, oh, I don't need that. Okay, it's not for you. Maybe your community was not personally impacted by slavery or a legacy of slavery. But the thing about what's happening in Mississippi, or 251 bodies kind of just like turning up. Those bodies didn't magically turn up. This is why I continue to say it's really important for Black women specifically to be a member of your community. Like, you need to have a job. You need to have like friends and coworkers who know who you are. They don't necessarily have to like you. Everyone's not gonna like love and like you, and maybe everyone's not gonna be your best friend. But you also can't like the part right now. The Black community is actually unlivable. Like, it's unlivable because like people are fucking going missing and nobody even notices. How do you not notice that 251 people are just dead and buzzards are trying to eat them? Like, are you fucking kidding? Like, that's insane. That's actually insane. That's actually insane. How can 251 bodies just go up, just turn up missing? If I don't post things for 2 fucking days, I get like ghost texts from my mother. Where the fuck are you? Where have you been? You know, like my managers are calling. People notice. I didn't show up one day for one Saturday for one shift, and this elderly lady who I work with, who wasn't even there on the shift that I missed, text me talking about where you at. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, there's no way 251 people just go missing and like nobody notices. That isn't a thing. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. People know. Being accountable and being a member of your community is a real thing, and I think that that's a new goal that, especially if you're a Black person watching this channel, strive for that. Just strive for that at this point. Like, I don't think like we're at a place where we can start having ambitious goals about like maybe not having rapists in the community, not having killers or murderers, not having Black men who are out here trying to murder Black women, not having other Black women who absolutely hate other Black women. Like, instead of having ambitious goals like that, or to live in a society where there's fucking equity, that's going a little too far for where we are in the current state of society in 2024. Instead of doing that, just participate in society right now. Get out of a community that is homogenous. If you're around all Black people, leave. Leave now. Exit stage left. Because it is not safe. What I'm trying to say is it's not safe. Like, the Black community is just going... The problem with the Black community is that there's a Black community. Seriously. The problem with the Black community right now is that there is a fucking Black community. Because, like, there's no, like, the accountability isn't there. Like, how do we just have the Combs twins who fucking lost a mother, which is actually really sad, but then also now they have, like, a rapist as a dad, and it's just okay? They're just, like, posting on Instagram, and now they're just, like, sponsored supermodels? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, how many regular... YouTubers have we seen right now? Even the guy, remember that 70s show actor who literally they said he raped the 2 women? He's getting like 86 years in jail. He's getting 80. He got like 86 years to life in prison. How is it Diddy is accused of doing all this shit to Cassie, this singer that we know and love, and he's just gonna be like, oh, it's all good. He could just go. He could just, like, be, like, out here. Like, no. The problem with the Black community is that there's not one. Okay, the problem with the Black community is that we really need, in order to understand racism, because what happened in Mississippi is actually a really good example of racism at its finest. Like, the anti-Black racism works in these systemic ways. A lot of people from other communities, like Asian communities, Latin communities, even white communities, they don't really care about what's happening in the Black community because they don't actually have to interact with any Black people ever. In really most of the portions of my life, I've never been in an entirely Black space, and all the fucking spaces that I'm in are like not mostly Black. Actually, there's one job I had this year where most of the employees were Black. Was it like most? Yeah, I would say like 50% of the employees were Black. And that's the most Black coworkers I've ever had in like my whole life. So, man, like there's a lot of issues. There's like a lot of problems. I don't know. I had to think about this one more because it's like a long thing to unpack.